He was young, talented, and on the verge of living every athlete's dream. But just days before the NFL draft, former LSU wide receiver Kyren Lacy was found dead inside his car in Houston. The news hit like a punch to the chest, not just because of the loss, but because of what surrounded it. This wasn't just a tragedy, it was a tragedy wrapped in controversy, legal drama, and a level of pressure no 24-year-old should have to endure alone. Kyren wasn't some bench warmer. He led LSU in touchdowns last season with 9, racking up 866 yards on 58 receptions. Scouts were talking. His draft stock was rising, and despite all the noise around him, he still declared for the 2025 NFL Draft. That alone tells you he was still holding on to hope. But behind the scenes, a storm was brewing. And it wasn't just about football. Back in December 2024, a 78-year-old man named Herman Hall lost his life in a crash in Louisiana. Authorities said Kyren was the driver. They claimed he was speeding, reckless, and worst of all, left the scene without helping. It was a serious accusation. But here's where it gets murky. Kyren turned himself in weeks later and was released on a $151,000 bond. Yet despite the media painting him as guilty from the jump, he hadn't even been officially charged by the district attorney. Not once. The case hadn't even gone to the grand jury. Still, the damage had already been done. His mugshot was everywhere. Articles dragged his name without context. And while most defendants are shown with a neutral headshot or college photo, Kyren's image was weaponized. The court of public opinion had already made its ruling. Then came the civil lawsuit, filed not just against Kyren, but including another person who, mysteriously, wasn't charged at all. Only Kyren's name was dragged through the mud. And just like that, the NFL, the very dream he'd worked his whole life for, allegedly pulled his draft card. No hearing, no defense, just gone. Imagine waking up every day, watching everything you've worked for get taken away, and not even having a chance to explain yourself. Kyren's attorney, Matthew Ori, didn't hold back. He called it a witch hunt, a targeted smear campaign fueled by public perception, not evidence. He insisted that once the grand jury heard the full case, the charges wouldn't stick. But Kyren wouldn't live to see that day. On April 12th, just 2 days before his scheduled grand jury appearance, everything unraveled. Police were called to the scene of a domestic disturbance in Houston. Witnesses claimed Kyren had discharged a weapon into the ground. When officers arrived, he was already gone. A short police chase ended with Kyren crashing his vehicle and taking his own life in the driver's seat. That was the final headline. Former LSU star dies by apparent suicide. Just like that, the story ended. But the pain, the questions, those are just beginning. What gets overlooked in the rush to report is the psychological weight this young man must have carried. Public backlash, media attacks, lawsuits, a career stolen before it could begin, and the looming pressure of a legal system that was slow to act but fast to judge. His attorney later said that Kyren was crushed under the weight of an irresponsible and prejudiced process. And when you zoom out, it's hard not to agree. The public rarely talks about what happens when someone becomes a headline before they ever have a chance to speak. It's always innocent until proven guilty, until the media decides otherwise. Kyren's story became about the charges, the rumors, the mistakes, but not the man, not the kid who once lit up Friday night lights in Thibodaux, Louisiana, not the teammate, not the son. And speaking of family, his father, Kyren Lacy, broke the internet with a gut-wrenching post. He didn't just grieve. He called out a deeper issue. Start talking to your kids early, he wrote. Make sure they're confident enough to confide in you. Don't ignore "I'm all right" when you know they're not. That line hit hard because it's something so many people relate to, pretending to be okay while quietly falling apart. The sports world responded with grief and outrage. Dak Prescott, who has been open about his own mental health journey, posted a tribute urging people to reach out, to check on their loved ones, and to understand that pain isn't always visible. And honestly, he's right. Mental health is real, and often, the ones smiling the biggest are carrying the heaviest load. Let's be clear. 2 lives were lost in this story. Herman Hall, the elderly man in the crash, is a tragedy that should not be forgotten. His family is also grieving, also looking for answers. But now, Kyren's death adds a second layer of heartbreak. 2 families, 2 futures gone, and a justice system still trying to figure out what really happened. There's a haunting quote from Kyren's attorney that lingers. "There was never a presumption of innocence." That one sentence captures everything wrong with how this played out. It wasn't just about guilt or innocence. It was about perception, about how fast a reputation can be destroyed when the world decides you're no longer worth protecting. What's most painful is knowing that Kyren likely felt like there was no way out, that the noise was louder than the hope, that the pressure became unbearable. And yet, he still tried. He still declared for the draft. He still believed, at least for a while, that he could make it out. So now, we're left with questions. Could this have been prevented? Did the media go too far? Should the NFL have stepped in with more care? And most importantly, how many more young lives have to be lost before we take mental health seriously, not just in theory, but in action? Kyren Lacy didn't get the ending he deserved, but maybe his story can be the start of a conversation that's long overdue, a conversation about compassion, about not rushing to judge, and about checking in, really checking in with the people we love. Because at the end of the day, life is fragile, dreams are fragile, and sometimes the strongest looking ones are the ones fighting the hardest battle behind closed doors. Rest in peace, Kyren Lacy, and may your story spark the change we so desperately need. If this story moved you, don't scroll past. Like this video, leave a comment with your thoughts or prayers for the families, and subscribe for more stories that dig deeper than the headlines. And most importantly, check on your people. You never know who needs it.